Good morning. We are going to go ahead and get started. So we'll call this the 30-second warning. "30 seconds and counting. Good morning and a warm welcome to day 3 of the 2023 AAHHE conference. My name is James Rodriguez, and I have the privilege and honor of serving as the treasurer and a board member for this wonderful association. Due to the fact that we are delayed this morning while we've been waiting for others to join us, and they will join us as this session is in progress, I'm going to try to provide an abbreviated welcome this morning so that we can get to our plenary panel in just a bit. First, just a reminder of our vision statement, and which is on the screen. This is something that we try to share on a regular basis and to start each day of the conference. Also, there is our mission statement, which includes our core values. So these are the values that guide the work of this organization as we move forward, continuing to advance, continuing to move adelante. Just a reminder of the association's policy against discrimination and harassment. If you could please make sure that you keep this in mind throughout the day. Then moving on, I'd like to recognize our partners, ETS, a longtime partner, Sage Publishing, Outlook in Higher Education, the University of Utah New Leadership Academy. So these are all key partners that are engaged with us during this conference and then throughout the year. And then a big thank you to our conference sponsors. Our Diamante conference sponsors, the University of Nevada at Las Vegas, UNLV, Mount San Antonio College, or Mount SAC, and we're going to hear from a couple of our friends from Mount SAC in just a couple of minutes. A thank you to our Esmeralda conference sponsor, the University of Texas at Austin College of Education, Department of Educational Leadership and Policy. Our Amber conference sponsors, the Ohio State University and Washington University in St. Louis. We're recognizing all of our sponsors each day because of the valuable contributions that they make to this association and specifically to this conference to make this possible. Our Jade conference sponsors, the Arredondo Advisory Group, Texas State University, MSU Denver, the UNLV College of Education, Nevada State College, UNLV, the College of Southern Nevada, our host for this conference, and DRI. A big thank you to our Onyx conference sponsors, Lehigh University College of Education, California State University San Bernardino, the College of Professional Education at Texas Women's University. A thank you to our Turquesa conference sponsors, the UC Irvine School of Social Sciences, Nevada State College, and the University of Georgia. So let's give a big hand to all of our sponsors. So next, I'd like to briefly make introductions. In order to move the program along, there will be introductions. You can think of this as a preview of coming attractions, because our lunch today is going to be focused on the Fellows Program, and we will hear more about the Fellows Program and from a couple of individuals during that lunch. First, our incoming AAHHE Fellows Program co-chairs, Sarah L. Rodriguez from Texas A&M Commerce, and Ignacio Hernandez, Associate Professor at California State University, Fresno. So let's give them a big hand. We will hear from Doctors Rodriguez and Hernandez a little later today. Also, our Fellows Program board liaisons to the Fellows Program, before I want to go back, are either Sarah or Ignacio in the audience at this moment? Okay. Moving on to our board liaisons, Patricia Perez, Cal State Fullerton. Aurora Kamamura, Washington University. She's not with us this morning. Monique Posadas, UC Riverside. So again, we will hear more about the Fellows Program and at lunchtime today. Now to move on to our plenary session. Our Diamante sponsor, and they're going to say a few brief words in just a minute, is Mount San Antonio College. And I'm going to ask both Lisette Hernandez, Acting Assistant Director of Professional Development and Organizational Development, and Jose Ramirez, Executive Assistant to the Vice President of Human Resources, to please come up and share a few words with us. Let's give them a hand.
Buenos dias. So we first want to start off by thanking AAHHE for giving us this opportunity to speak today on behalf of our college. And I also want to clarify from being, if you all seen our booth and answering several questions of our college outside, everybody has a tendency to think that we're from San Antonio College, but we're actually from California. So just want to clarify that. We're not Texas. But nothing with Texas. So our college is a strong supporter of AAHHE, and this is my second time personally here, and it's been impactful for me. So we want to continue to support this program. So a little bit about Montana. Our college we're a public community college. We are east of Los Angeles. We're one of the biggest community colleges in the nation, and we're actually, I think, the largest in California. We are primarily an HSI serving institution. We serve about 40,000 students or so, and we offer about 200 different degrees and certificate programs, which they range from disciplines including business, healthcare, technology, arts, and science. Mount SAC is committed to providing high quality education and opportunities for students. We succeed both academically and personally. The college offers a variety support of services, including counseling, tutoring, career services to help students achieve their goals. With the state of our facilities and experienced faculty, Mount SAC is a leading institution in the California community college system. The college is also home to numerous athletes. We have a huge athletic program. And so if you're looking for a great place to work, please visit our booth. We're outside. And now my colleague Lizette's going to come in.
Okay, I'm going to take this microphone short so you won't be able to see me. Yes, thank you, Jose. So I just wanted to highlight a little bit about why we're here today. Aside from attending AAHHE and taking part of the rich sessions and all the information and encouragement we get at this conference, it really is a time for us to come and fill our cup. So we appreciate the opportunity, but we're also here to recruit. As Jose said, our institution is a great place to be, both as students and also as faculty, classified employees, and administrative employees. We currently have over 30 positions, faculty positions, that we are recruiting for, and they range from math, engineering, the sciences, the arts. It's a great opportunity if you are early in your career or already further on in your career to take a look at Mount SAC. There's a great opportunity there to advance in your career, to really serve a diverse population. We have over, I would say now, about 3,200 employees, including faculty, full-time tenured faculty and adjunct. We are currently also recruiting, well, we're almost at the end of our recruitment for our new president. So for those of you who are unaware, our current president, Dr. Scroggins, is retiring at the end of June. And we are well in our way of recruiting for our incoming new president. And we are so proud to say that out of all of the applicants, we have narrowed that down to 5 candidates that are being selected to move forward for our forums. And out of those candidates are all women. And out of those 5 women, 2 of them are Latinas. So we're very excited about that. So we encourage you to please listen into our forums, learn more about our college, go visit our booth. Stacy, our HR manager, is out there ready to convince you to come and visit us. And then also just one last piece of information to take with you. If you decide to apply at Mount SAC and we offer you that opportunity to come and interview with us, we will cover your travel, we'll cover your airfare, we'll cover your lodging, we'll cover your expenses to come and meet with us. So it really is an opportunity for you to discover a little bit more, take advantage of. We're here if you have any questions. As you can see, we're really excited about our college. We think it's a great place to be, and we hope that you do as well. So with that, thank you. I'll turn it back over to our host here. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisette and Jose. Let's give them another hand. So we've been able to make up a little of our time, and we're doing pretty well in terms of schedule. And so next I have the distinct honor of introducing this morning's plenary session for resistance, refusal, and praxis at critical junctures. So what I'll do is I'll introduce the moderator and the panelists, and they will come up and sit on their director's chairs. We're going very Hollywood this morning. And there's a mic for each of you. And then at that point, once they're up here and situated, actually, once they're up here and you're all up here and situated, then Cristobal will take over as a moderator and I will become a timekeeper. So without further ado, our moderator for this morning's plenary session, a colleague in many ways, including on the board of directors, Dr. Cristobal Rodriguez. Please come up. Our first panelist to come up on the stage, Danyeli Rodriguez del Orbe from John Jay College. Our next panelist, Bamby Salcedo from California State University, Los Angeles. And to round out our panel introductions, Dr. Anita Tijerina from California, also from California State University, Los Angeles. And so at this point, I'll hand it over to Dr. Rodriguez, Cristobal Rodriguez, and looking forward to this session.
Good morning, buenos dias. All right, I know it's Friday morning, so let's give that a little Friday morning energy. Buenos dias. Ahora sí, ahora sí. First of all, I want to thank everybody, and especially our program planners who put together this powerful session. The idea here, resistance, refusal, and practice at critical junctures. I think there's another element to us being here, and this is the idea, something that I learned from the two-spirit concepts, that we are blessed by your words, we're blessed by your identities, we're blessed by who you are. So thank you for being here with us and giving your time and devoting yourself to this conversation. So I want to first start with that, so thank you. I want to also give each of you time to introduce yourself in your own way, in your own words, to who you think you want people to know versus what we see in our biographies that's in the app, in the wonderful app. So we'll start maybe on our left and we'll work our way this way. Or actually our right, your left, we'll start with them.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having us here. I'm honored to be on this panel with my sister Bamby and with my colleague Danyeli. It's an honor to be here, and I appreciate he and my colegas who are part of the organization for seeing the value of queer, trans voices and mujer voices, so that we can, share space. I am Anita Revilla, Anita Tijerina Revilla, and I am the daughter of Delia. My mother is a fierce peleonera or sicona, reclaim those terms. And she's also a mujerista, which is how I identify myself, a Chicana Latina activist, feminist activist. I have gone from different places. I'm Tejana originally, and I went to the East Coast. So I think my siblings on the East Coast who taught me Black and Brown solidarity. Then I came to study in California at UCLA, specifically to look at Chicana Latina, raza women and mujerista activism. And then I came to Vegas and continued to expand my understanding of the world from a Chicana Latina feminist, mujerista, and joteria perspective. And I have my friends, former students, and colegas to thank for that. I'm fiercely committed to social justice, and I am constantly trying to expand what that means. Most recently, beyond the social categories, I extend that to my own healing and our collective healing. So I'm happy to talk more about that. On my card, on my business card, I'm a chair of Chicana Latinx Studies at Cal State LA, but I am much more than that. Thank you.
Bueno, primero que nada, yo quiero empezar dando gracias a nuestro creador, mi poder superior, por darme la oportunidad de respirar y de tener vida un día más. También quiero honrar la tierra de la gente indígena de la cual estamos aquí hoy en día, y obviamente quiero honrar su presencia. For those of you who were not able to understand, I always, before I speak, I honor my creator for allowing me to breathe one more day. I also honor the land where we're standing on today, the indigenous people of this land, and I also honor your presence here. Pues yo simplemente soy Bamby Salcedo. I'm just, Bamby Salcedo. I do have the privilege to be the president and the CEO of the TransLatin Coalition. My definition of a CEO, my own definition for me, It's Community Elevated Officer, because it has been the community who has uplifted me to be who I am and where I am today. I'm so grateful that I have had people in my life like mi querida compañera y hermana, Profesora Tijerina, who has guided me in my academic process and many different processes actually. And it has been, people who has believed in me even when I was not able to believe in myself. It was people who gave me opportunity. It was people who, who has uplifted me. And so I can say that I am a servant to the people. The work that I do is to not just empower my community directly, right, through like the service provision, but also to developing their leadership and their organizing and all of the things, but also this system change work that I have been doing for a long time, because it is critical that we transform the systems that have oppressed us for many years. Soy originaria de México, Guadalajara to be exact. I was imported or exported to the United States when I was a young person, and I've been living in the United States. Well, I've been trapped in the United States for more than 30 years of my life. So I've been living in the United States longer than I lived in Mexico. With not, well, I could leave, but then I won't be able to come back. And so like in many ways I'm trapped here. But hoping, for that to change at some point. But yeah, I'm just grateful that I have the opportunity to be here. Thank you to the organizers for including me in this discussion that I believe it's important for us to have. So thank you again so much.
Hard to follow with the introduction after that. So much poetry. Hi, everybody. My name is Danyeli Rodriguez, Dominicana from the Bronx. Recently, I guess about 5 years ago, moved to the West Coast. And I'm a writer and a poet and an artist, and I just expose my family's business as means of art. I am currently exploring another medium, filmmaking, and showcasing some of those narratives that we don't see in mainstream media, and disrupting what the narrative about immigrants are in this country, what it looks like, what it sounds like, what it feels like, and just bringing Black immigrants to the forefront and the spotlight of the immigrant rights movement after decades of pretty much being ignored. So my work focuses on marginalized Black immigrant communities, Black Latinx communities. And yeah, I just sit at home when I'm sad and I write poems and people tend to like them. And then sometimes those poems become films, and then there's my mom watching her own story on film in front of a group of people. But really, I think I consider myself someone that archives the narratives that for many of us were silenced, and for a lot of our families, we were convinced that they're not worthy of being told. So it's just my honor to be able to bring those stories through me, and just honor the ancestors and the family heritage through telling those stories. I'm so happy to be here, and thank you all for waking up extremely early on a Friday morning to hear us chat.
Thank you all. So the first question, although it's centered on the space and concept of, I keep looking up there, I know, resistance and refusal, there's another element of liberation to that as well. And I'm mindful that my own daughter, who identifies as queer and lesbian, has also, and is still liberating my own consciousness, that when the dominant conscious has been oppressive, she's still liberating. So this refusal, this resistance also is liberation. Tell us about how you see your identity with those concepts.
You know, I grew up the way that most Dominicans grow up, which is not really understanding what their identity is, what their identity means, and completely deprived of anything that even hints at Blackness and at our ancestors. And you know, I had the privilege of attending college and meeting some amazing, actually Latinx professors that kind of cleared up what it means to be Black, what it means to be Latina, what it means to be woman, and the responsibility that comes from that. So, you know, my work from very early on, whether it was an academic setting and writing my thesis about Black Dominican migrant women in New York City, it was always at a resistance for against the dominant narrative. And it was a very hard task to take that on and not just face the academic setting and bringing in, you know, more nuances to intersectionality, but then also to bring that home and confront what it looks like to tell your mom like, hey, I'm Black, when, you know, historically she's been told that she's not and that we're not. So by default, I think I placed myself very early on and probably at an age where I couldn't really understand what I was doing in the constant work of resistance and survival. And I know that happens regardless of the work that you're doing. But I think for me, it was a really big awakening that I only could have gotten in the academic setting and encountering some of those professors and mentors that like really influenced the work that I do. But with that first came, you know, the self-work, right? And understanding who I am and understanding where Dominicans come from. And then second came the conversation, which is what, you know, I talk to most young people about, right? It's not enough for you to liberate yourself, right? The conversations always need to go outwards. So I think, you know, my identity has gone through through the back and forth of, you know, discourse and theory and all the things that come from accessing education. And then finally just feels more comfortable in the room, feels more comfortable to show up and feels more comfortable in making other people uncomfortable when I show up. So, you know, the work that I do is a complete reflection of that. And I forgot what the question was. But I think I answered it.
You did well. Thank you.
So Bamby wants me to go next. So I will. I just didn't want them to think I skipped you. Yeah, so, you know, I've been studying race and ethnic studies since I got to college in 1991, right? So this question of resistance has been on my mind for at least the past 30 years because I fell in love with ethnic studies first through the lens of resistance, right? Because I was resisting all the internalized racism that I had been taught to accept as a Tejana from San Antonio, right? We were taught, even my own grandparents, to be anti-Mexican, anti-undocumented people. And I didn't really understand it because we were all, I don't know if y'all know San Antonio, but we're all Mexican there. But you know, this divide between citizens and undocumented people was something that I had been exposed to, but not in a critical way. So the minute that I learned that you know, we were being discriminated against because we were darker skinned, because my father was an indigenous man, and because my mom's side of the family was light skinned, like we weren't like the favorite grandchildren, right? And so when I learned this, I was like, oh my God, it's happening across the country, across the world. I must teach everyone to resist the racism, the classism, the sexism, and homophobia didn't come till later, homophobia and transphobia. I continue to learn about this when I came to UCLA, because everyone kept telling me, if you want to study activism, right, movement, you have to go to Los Angeles. So I did exactly that. And there my world expanded to look at it from, as we say, the intersectional analysis. I have a visual where I like to name all of the different ways that we have been wounded. So it's like a multidimensional struggle, multidimensional wounding. And so again, most of my life has been in resistance. Where refusal comes in, I think this is a concept that is coming to us from queer and trans movement. It's coming to us from Black movement, from the Black Lives Matter movement. I think if you read the book, the new book, Rest is Resistance, there's a book that I really want you to read. It's called My Grandmother's Hands, Healing from Racialized Trauma. A social worker wrote it. His name is Resma Min-Akim. And so he's not an abolitionist. His brother's a cop, so trigger warning, he's not an abolitionist. However, what he's doing is he's trying to teach he calls it Black bodies, white bodies, and police bodies to stop being triggered by our historical ancestral cellular trauma. He's like, he argues that white people had trauma in Europe and they brought that trauma here and they traumatized Black people and they taught the trauma to police officers. And so that's why they're killing Black bodies. And so he argues that we're not going to learn to change the world until we heal our bodies. It has to be an internal healing. You can try to, teach people, you can go to every movement that you've ever thought of, but until you refuse, right, this refusal to engage in the constant harm that we have been taught is the way to win in this country, right? So even us as marginalized people, we're constantly trying to beat each other out, compete, hold each other back. And we hear this and we're wondering, where does that come from? That's the trauma in ourselves, like as colonized people. So a real decolonial practice is a refusal to continue in that harm, right? It's also a refusal to continue competing and being part of this capitalist, game where people don't get to rest. And that's what the Rest is Resistance book is arguing, that when you rest and stop trying to please everybody, stop being a codependent parent, academic, teacher, activist, then you can finally start to heal your body, your spirit, and your mind. So that's how I'm looking at it.
You're right.
You got yours.
La profesora came to teach. I love it. Gracias.
Yes, thank you so much for teaching. Refusal and resistance has been my entire life, right? One thing that I unconsciously, I guess, consciously and unconsciously, right, that I sort of refuse to conform, right, to societal, what they call norms, right? It's it's part of my practice and part of my healing and part of my spirituality, right? Because also I have to say that my spirituality has been the core thing that has allowed me to continue to be doing this work for more than 25 years, right? And one of the things that I did on January 1st, to start, just to bring new energy to my life. For those of you who don't know, I used to have long hair and I just shaved it off, right? As a way to resist some of those things, particularly as a trans woman, right? Femininity is something that it's critical for many of us, right? And our hair is one of those things that is part of our femininity, right? But I have learned for me that, hair, makeup, I hate makeup, every once in a while, me hago una rayita aquí and like something like that, but that's all. I mean, I wear makeup sometimes because I feel like I have to, you know, particularly like, because I don't know, I feel like, I don't know, like I feel like I have all kinds of stuff in my face, which I do, but yeah, and so I only do it, you know, for, I don't know, red carpets or whatever. But that is for me, like makeup and hair and even, you know, clothes, right? It doesn't make me who I am, right? And I have learned that, and that is a way for me to resist that, and also to refuse, right? That I'm not that I'm, you know, more than that. And even like in my own community, I remember, you know, years ago, right? Like other trans women, you know, some of the things that happen among our community is like people inject stuff into their bodies, right? Other than hormones, you know, just to enhance, you know, their buttocks or their hips or whatever. And so they always wanted me to like, you know, like, oh, you should do this, you should do that. And I just, why, right? Like, why? That was my way of refusing. And so I was lucky that I never did, because many of my friends who have gone through those processes, you know, they're having consequences. Um, as a matter of fact, several years ago, we produced a short documentary that is called Dying to be a Woman, which talks about the substance injection, injecting substances into their bodies and not really caring, right? Because many of us just live for right now, right? And that is also a way of survival, right? But it's also a way of continuing to resist, right? Like that despite of the multiple oppressions that we experience, the violence that we constantly experience, right? That we still refuse and we resist, right? All of that, and we get to live in whatever way possible, right? And one of the things that we are concentrating on, and like it's very key into my work that I'm doing right now, it really is, you know, looking after aging trans people, right? Particularly trans women, because, you know, they're my friends.
Gracias. So we exist, and I think we also reflect many critical junctures of our and within our communities. I'm mindful that as we think about critical junctures or think about intersectionalities or even within ourselves, there's also a reconciliation that we have to reflect on often as we think about these intersections or we think about these critical junctures. Given all of that, what do you believe is imperative to acknowledge to work through these critical junctures, intersectionalities, and reconciliation, both within and with our community?
I can answer first. First thing I thought of when I heard that question was the self. I think when you realize that you're not meant to live within the restrictions of whatever system you're born in, whatever family or dysfunction you're born in, and whatever way in which this world is committed to misunderstanding you, once that need becomes so desperate that there's no surviving within that box, I think that begins like a reconciliation of self, right? Of realizing that, you know, that hurting ourselves in the process of wanting to fit whatever our loved ones, our family, or friends, or the society and the community that we're in is no longer enough for us, once we realize that within the self, I think that there's just no coming back. And we might struggle along the way, finding out how to do this and finding out how to show up for our own selves. But I think that for me, when I began to do critical race theory work inside the classroom, within myself, within my community, the first thing was realizing that there was really no way in which I could live a life that was unauthentic to what I believed in and what I knew to be true. And what I knew to be true was that, Dominicans come from a long history of colonization. We were the first land that Columbus landed and began to colonize and kill and rape and all these things, right? And we're also some of the earliest children of colonization in the Dominican Republic. And understanding that, right, allowing for that realization and that understanding to be true, while at the same time saying, but enough time has passed that we are in a place where we can do this work now. I think there wasn't any coming back from that, and the reconciliation started with understanding my community and having grace, but at the same time, not enough grace that you're about to play with me, respectfully. And then once the work begins within the self, I think that little by little, there's just no way that you can survive in a place that dims you. And I think that's where I realized that all the intersections were with me. And when people were around that were not honoring that, were not doing that work, then there was just no place for me to be in, or you were going to begin to show up the way that I needed you to. While at the same time contesting with the idea that it's not going to happen over time. So I think, after, over 10 years of doing this work, what I've come to realize is that there are people out there that think the way that we do, and there are people out there that are doing this work, and there are people out there that are suffering in the same way that we do, and that want to speak the language that we're seeking. So the reconciliation really comes with finding family, and I think that this is real for a lot of queer people, where they create families of their own, and even in ways where their family can't show up, for us, for them. There's just this reconciliation that happens with searching for that feeling of liberation that you feel in a room full of people that understand you, and then accepting the rooms in which you can show up in and you won't be accepted, and figuring out how you want to show up in either or. I think that's the way that I contest with it anyway. Different energy for different folks. That's my go-to.
Can you repeat the question again?
So our community is at these many critical junctures and intersectionalities, and in these spaces within and with our communities, how do we believe that it's imperative for us to acknowledge that and work through that? I'm thinking about reconciliation.
Yeah. Well, I want to say, because this is a space of where many academics come to, right, and administrators and professors, and I'm going to say people who do have power, right, and the ability to create changes. And so I think it's important, one, that we recognize our responsibility for where we are, and the privilege that we have as academics. I am one of them. And also, understanding the positionality of trans people, particularly trans Latinx, Latina people, right? And where we are and within our society, but what needs to happen for us to have better qualities of life, right? And higher education is one of the things to where we lack, right? We don't have those opportunities, and that that is because of the societal oppression that we experience, right? I mean, we have to recognize that, in many different states right now, like in more than 30 states, trans youth are being attacked, right? Which is an impediment for them to stay in school, right? Like there's so much stress that young people are experiencing right now. That is going to impede them to continue to their education, right? And so I want for us to be conscientious and for us to think about like how can we think of creating like pipelines, right, for education for trans people. I'm very privileged that I was able to do that, with the support of many different amazing and beautiful, professors who uplifted me, right? But it was in many ways, it was isolating, right? Because now people have ready to have more like online classes, but when I was going to college, I was going in person, and I was in most of my classes, of my courses, I was the only openly trans identified person, right? Like, not that there wasn't others, but at least I was the one who was, and I'm also visibly trans, right? Like, which I appreciate, and others may not, but I think that's one thing that we can, think about, right? And how do we influence? How do we use our privilege, the connections that we have, the access to resources that we get, right? Like I see that there's like scholarships and different things that are provided here, right? And so I know that, people have great ideas, and, all of you have great minds and can come up with creative ways, right? To really think about like what is going to be our contribution to one of the most marginalized people in this country. And again, being that the Latinx population is growing in the United States, and really depends on where you live, right? I know that in Los Angeles, we are the majority, for instance, right? Like, which is the same in other places. And so just think about like how can we contribute to that? And I also want to say, like we as an organization, again, we do macro and micro level work, like meaning community work. And we are, contributing to the change of the landscape of the livelihood of our community. And, we are creating legislation, particularly in California, because it's, I don't know, people think that just because we're in California, our lives are better, but that's a myth, actually. We continue to get discriminated, trying to get employment, and, housing, healthcare, like you name it, right? There is legislation. California is the most trans-inclusive state in terms of legislation, but our broader society don't necessarily know about it, right? So like there's an implementation piece to legislation that's passed that people need to know about. And so, we as an organization are looking about at what is our future going to be like, right? And how we are contributing to the broader trans movement, but also how we are inserted into not just other movements, but other spaces like academia, for instance. And so I want to invite you to support some of that work. And I want to let you know that part of our future as an organization, we just purchased a piece of land in Los Angeles, which is super expensive. Yes, and so right now I'm entering into this new campaign, if you will, right, into which we want to ask, and we want to have committed individuals who want to support our efforts. So we're gonna get 1,000 people who will commit to raise $1,000 to help us, empezar con los cimientos, or with the, what do you call it, the base or the foundation? Yes, thank you. The foundation to build our center. And we are doing that. We're one of the first translate organizations who's doing that work. And we want to be the reflection of the possibilities of our people. So please, if you are able to, and one of the ways that you could do that, I mean, you can gather friends and just ask them to pitch in, like, I don't know, $20 or whatever, you know, and you can, if each one of us can raise $1,000, which I know that you can, you will contribute to the change that we are all creating. And I believe in collective freedom. I believe in collective, support, and because the work is collective, right? And so I want to invite you to please consider that.
That's Ms. Bamby. Can we give her a round of applause, because that, I don't think you understand, or maybe some of you do, but you don't understand what it took to get this piece of land in West Hollywood for TransLatinas, right? And Latinx people. Like, that is a huge undertaking. At one point, it was a dream in the sky, right? And this woman made it happen with her colegas, with her comrades, and with her years of working towards this vision. And I think what she's doing is very generous. It's inviting you into that, that challenge, right? So it's, and I don't want to diss anybody, but it's one thing to have a panel where you invite Bamby Salcedo. It's another thing to like commit yourself to Bamby's movement, to commit yourself to trans community, to trans research. And that's where we are at this juncture, right? We're asking ourselves, so we're marginalized people, right? And we've been alleged oppressed, but we are also oppressors. We have internalized the stuff that has been put upon us, and we have marginalized other people. If you look at what's represented here, a trans mujer, an Afro-Latina, a queer mujerista, like, we are yet another level of marginalized people. So I love that you have us, but it's just the beginning. It's only a scratch on the top of the iceberg, right? How else can you challenge yourself to truly be a partner in this work, right? Do you have trans people on your research team? Do you have them on, do you work with them as colleagues? Do you know anything about Joteria or trans studies? Do you know how to say the acronym LGBTQIA+? Do you know what they all mean, right? Like, one of the ways that we truly have to show our commitment to doing intersectional work is to asking ourselves, what are the places that I don't have, oppression or marginalization? And how can I assist other people who do have that marginalization, right? So if you're a man, what are you truly doing to be a partner, co-conspirator, and ally to women and feminist people, right? Like, if you're going home and your lady's doing all the cooking still, and she's doing all the cleaning and taking care of your children, if you're going to work and all the women are doing all the service and you're sitting back, you're not that great of an ally to women, right? So I'm not trying to call you out, I'm trying to call you in. This is part of our healing. Our collective healing necessitates that we take accountability for the places that we are not truly doing the work of committing to social justice, right? We call ourselves social justice scholars, la lucha sigue, but usually it's your lucha is articulated through the lens of your own identity. So critical race theorist Neil Gatunda said, who is not at the table, right? Because the people who are not at your table, or in your, again, like in your office and in your spaces, your community spaces, those are the people that you are likely gaining privilege and access and power at their expense. And that's a really hard thing for people of color to see because we feel so oppressed, we don't have power. But yet there is power in having any identity of the intersection, any social identity at that intersection that gives you privilege. If you are not being targeted for either discrimination or murder, right? Because trans mujeres are at the height of being killed and discarded. If you're not doing something to intervene with that, at the very least, awareness and education, then you too might be part of this collective that is allowing the violence against trans mujeres, right? It's a really hard thing to reckon with. And again, like I'm just inviting us not to feel guilty, not to feel called out, right? That's that we talk about white fragility, but there is a ton of Latino fragility. There's a ton of hetero fragility. There's a ton of documented people, right? If you're a citizen and you're not doing anything for undocumented people, that's a problem, right? Don't leave that up to us, the special panel. Don't leave that up to that expert in Joteria studies. Or that woman who's a feminist. Make it your charge to learn about it, teach about it, and work in partnership with us. Part of that is going to mean that we have to do some healing work because we trigger each other constantly, right? So that's where the earlier comment about healing ourselves is really important.
Gracias, un aplauso. We're gonna do a little bit of a lightning round with individual teachings that each of you are teaching us in different ways. Now I want to expand and start with you, Profesora, on spirit murder and all forms of discrimination that we see and experience, and not just in the sense of the individual, but also the collective harm of it. In response to that is the concept of spirit protecting. So you started highlighting spirit protecting there in your response. Tell us more about why spirit protecting is important.
Absolutely. Thank you for asking the question. I've been talking about spirit murder a long time. So many of you have heard about it. I even talked to the AAHHE fellows just about, I don't know, a couple months ago and last year as well about this concept of spirit murder. I learned about it as a grad student. My advisor, Danyeli, who I want to honor and recognize as like a fabulous partner and co-conspirator of queers and feminists, he taught us about this term. Patricia Williams, a legal scholar who's basically, she was a critical race theorist in the field of law, even before critical race theory got coined. So I want to honor her work and ask you to read her book. It's called The Alchemy of Race, and it's basically her experience as a law professor and Black woman in that field. But she talked about it, and it's literally this one paragraph where she's talking about the fact that legally you have recourse for physical harm. Somebody burns your house down, somebody commits a hate crime, you can take it to court, right? And you can, hold people accountable. However, the spiritual harm that takes place, especially in this case, what she's talking about is racism, but also all the other isms and phobias, right? Classism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, those are also spirit murdering, have spirit murdering impacts, right? And so what she's arguing is that we should have some recourse for that. We should be able to hold people accountable. That's how ethics studies came to be, right? And so I really like this term. It resonates with so many people every time we talk about it. The reason is because all of us have been spirit murdered, right? All of us have experienced it or witnessed it. And what I argue all the time is that sometimes we're perpetrating it to ourselves and others. The reason that we're doing that is because we've been so manipulated by the isms and phobias in our society that we've internalized them and we've used them against each other. Oh, you're not professional enough, you're not good enough for a grad program, you're not academic enough, whatever. Those are internalized spirit murders. But you have spirit protectors and spirit restorers. Bamby, she's my spirit protector. She's part of my spirit protecting team, right? My colega Roberto, my friend Nessa, Briseida, Eddie, they're part of my spirit protecting team. They know that Rosemary's here there too, like so many of you, my Joteria, right? Sergio, Gabriel, like we are protecting each other because we know that spirit murder, attempted spirit murder is all around us, even right next to us in our seats, right? So we need to step up and be spirit protectors of each other, spirit restorers. And if you can't be a restorer or protector, I usually say, at least stop harming other people. You don't have to protect them, but stop harming people. Recognize when you have internalized Eurocentric, patriarchal, homophobic, transphobic ways of being, because they're killing us. Our spirits are dying, both in community and in the classroom.
Absolutely.
I used to be a religion major, that's why I'm a little bit of a preacher.
Love it, love it, love it. Bamby, you are a light for our communities, especially from the concept of coalition building. Teach us about why coalition building is critically important, especially not just for and with the trans community, but across communities.
Well, it really is going back to what I mentioned a little while ago, right? I believe in our collective freedom, and that is only going to happen if we work together, right? And so that's why it's important to me. I mean, I'm a living proof, right? Like I'm trans in the flesh, right? And again, it has been people and community, right, who has uplifted me to be where I am today, and I believe in people, and I want my wish, my lifelong wish, is for all of us to really understand our collective power, right? Understanding that we do have individual power, right? But our collective power is what ultimately is going to support all of us to transform our society as it is right now, right? And so that's why for me it's important that that we build coalition with other movements, with other people, with politicians, with people who do have power, right? People who have the ability to change those systems, really, that have oppressed us for many, many years. But I do want to sort of like go back a little bit to the spirit murders and really understand that when we misgender someone, that is, I mean, there's research that has been done that says that that impacts us psychologically, right? And our spirit, right? Like it's putting, it just puts us down, right? And so it is important for us to like really understand the importance of acknowledging and valuing people as who we are, right? And not just think that because you're dressing a particular way, I'm gonna dress you this way, right? Like it's always important for people to understand how one wants to be addressed, because that is also contributing to murdering the spirit of trans people.
Danyeli, I read this quote and immediately texted one of my Dominicana Haitiana colegas and thanked her. As you say, I am an anthology of all the Dominican women they warned you about. Get on your knees and thank them. Tell us.
That's
Y
it.
gracias.
That's it. I mean, where that quote came from, right? I was writing a poem about the women that raised me. I grew up in a very matriarchal family, all single mothers who raised each other's children. my aunt was the first one to migrate from the Dominican Republic in the 80s, which was during the big wave of Dominican migration and into Washington Heights. And soon enough, she lost her partner to the criminal justice system. And she had to raise 3 kids in the 80s in New York City, in Washington Heights, which was an extremely over-policed but also dangerous neighborhood at the time, not anymore, gentrification. And my aunt brought my mother, also a single mother, and we all moved into the same building along with my godmother, who was also a single mother. And I just grew up with women who were badasses. They did not take crap. They did not let men move into the house. They completely protected us from what we knew masculinity could do in a home full of women. And yet, with all that strength and power that comes from raising your kid on your own in a country you've never been to, with no language and no resources, and also undocumented, I was coming into a lot of Dominican spaces and Caribbean spaces where the men had this certain possession over us and over Dominican women. There was always this need for Dominican women to be submissive to something that was just a ghost in our lives, which was this idea that masculinity could handle and could solve things for us. And I also wrote it after a very big case in the Dominican Republic of a 15-year-old girl who died under an illegal abortion, because the Dominican Republic has completely banned abortion. And it has happened again and again and again. And a lot of girls are dying either at the hands of their way older romantic partners who get these young girls and impregnate them and then force them into abortions. And a lot of older women at the hands of their romantic partners and their husbands, and it's just completely ignored and covered by the state. And all of these women, when you look at mainstream media, the way that these cases are either covered as being fast or slutty, or the girls were acting grown, or the women were not, were yelling back at their partners, so it was okay for them to be killed. And a lot of these narratives that are extremely toxic and extremely harming and dangerous. And I realized I come from a lineage of powerful ass Caribbean women. And even within Latino spaces, like there's always this little, kind of like a stigma, right? When a Caribbean woman walks into the room and she's all blackness and she's loud and we speak not traditional Spanish and we have a lot of slang and we talk at 100 miles an hour. And I thought, I come from an anthology of all the Dominican women that they warned you about. Those are the women that punch back, and those are the women that will stab you in the neck, and those are the women that don't stay shut, and those are the women that have curse words quick. They are quick with their comebacks, right? I'm talking with my aunt and my grandma. I'm working on a film, and I went to the DR and I told my grandma, hey grandma, I'm coming in with a crew. I want it to be completely organic. Don't dress up. I want you in your bata, cooking in the kitchen, lead your life the way it usually goes. I pull up, this woman has blush on, makeup, lipstick, her nails are, bright blue. And I'm like, lady, she's talking to me about this was in November, she's talking to me about whether I'm coming down for her 84th birthday. That she usually plans every year. And she hosts DJs and food. This is a woman with very limited resources. So she calls all her grandkids for $20 and she puts her own birthday party together, and all her older sisters who are in their 80s and 90s come through, and you see them dancing Bad Bunny. And these are the women that I come from, and there's a lot of pride in that, and there's also a lot of resistance and resilience in that, and realizing that we did not need a male present there to be able to grow up to be strong, independent, beautiful women. in fact, I think that we grew up to be that because the men were not around. And I think that's a really hard thing to say. So now when I perform that poem, I make it a point to look at every man in the room in the eye as I'm saying those words. Because essentially we are the aftermath of what it looks like to not be oppressed, depressed at the hands of men.
Gracias. 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 God forbid I have the last words in this session. Last words as blessings so that we can bless others in our work.
Blessings. I do want to acknowledge who we are as people, the position that we have within our society, and what we can do to change our society as it is today. And one thing that we can do, it's sort of like a charge for all of us, is to learn how to recognize our humanity and to practice hugging people left to left. That's one of the things that I'm practicing and teaching right now. But also simple things that you can do. You can go to a YouTube channel and subscribe. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers so that we can monetize from YouTube. But also, if you do have the ability to become a recurrent donor, if you don't want to commit into be part of that group of people who are going to help us raise $1,000, you could also become a recurrent donor at our organization. You could, whatever you can. People donate $1 a month. But if you want to support trans people who are in immigration detention, you can donate $30 a month. That's where we send a person once a month. So yeah, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
I was recently in Cuba, and I went to a santero, and something that, you know, he said to me, he said, wake up every morning and let the first thought that you have in your head be one of gratefulness for your ancestors, to your ancestors, and for waking up another day. So I guess the only thing that I can ask for is for everybody, wherever you are, whatever seat you are, take a deep breath and just thank your ancestors for bringing you here. A lot had to go down for you to even be a possibility of existence. You made it and you're here, and a lot of people had to survive to bring you here. So I hope that you honor that, and I think that that's how I close my thoughts.
Thank you. And along those lines, I want to thank your mother and her mother and her mother and all of your ancestors for creating you and bringing you to this moment in your life. Thank you.
Wow. Okay, so you know what? While they're taking a picture, let's give them one more hand.